thank you all for joining me, and we'll just get started. So the first question that I have, and I'll direct this at, we'll go with Kelly to start off with, and that is, why is an apprenticeship good for people who are leaving school?
Because it gives you a practical way of gaining a qualification and getting into the workplace as well, as opposed to going down the college route.
Okay, and Nicola, how can an apprenticeship gear you up to start your career?
Because you are gaining so much practical hands-on experience. There are certain things that you can learn in a classroom, but especially with like childcare and catering, because they are sort of more physical jobs, you learn so much more by physically doing that job role day in, day out than you ever would in a classroom.
Okay, and are there any benefits of taking an apprenticeship in childcare straight after someone leaves school? What would you say is better about jumping straight into it than, say, going to college for like 3 years?
I think the way I see it is you're gaining 3 years worth of workplace experience. So right from the get-go, you've already got that 3 years worth of work placement straight to go onto your CV. With our apprenticeships, where possible, we always like to keep them on. So, there is also that possibility that after their apprenticeship, it could become a full-time position for them. So I just think, a lot of employers now do look for experience over qualifications sometimes, and it just gives them that ability to gain the qualification and gain a lot of experience and knowledge within a workplace.
Okay, so we just mentioned about CVs there. And Chelsea, what sort of general information needs to be on a CV for someone that's never made one before?
So their name, contact details, kind of the location that they're in, any skills they've got, any kind of prior experience or qualifications they've gained from college or school. So yeah, pretty much just an overview of any qualifications they've got, or any like work experience and things like that.
Okay, and Kelly, if I was a school leaver and I'd just left school and I had no childcare or work experience, but I really want to work in childcare, what should I put on my CV?
So on your CV, I'd put about whether you've got children within your family, whether you've done any babysitting, or just why your keen passion is to work in the childcare sector. So is it a passion that has grabbed your attention? Is it something that you've researched previously and it's something that you definitely see yourself going down, such as have you got a nurturing character, have you got a caring character, and things like that?
Okay, and Nicola, aside from childcare skills, are there any other transferable skills that you guys are looking for that, say, someone like me could put on my CV? Things like time management and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So time management is like a massive one. If you're not in work on time, then obviously the nurseries can't open. It could affect obviously ratios within the nursery. So timekeeping is a massive one. Communication skills is a really important skill that's obviously transferable, because in a nursery you are communicating with senior staff within the nursery, you're communicating with children, and you're communicating with parents. So I'd say communication's a really big one. I'd probably also say having empathy and being able to sort of be empathetic towards all different types of situations is a really good skill to have as well.
Fantastic. And an open question to all of you, and each of you can jump in if there's anything memorable. But can you remember the best CV that you have received, and what parts of that CV, because obviously you must see lots day in, day out, what parts of that CV stood out to you?
I think one of the CVs that stood out to me recently, and obviously after having a conversation with the person as well, was they was really keen on getting into childcare, but they wasn't quite sure what route to take. So they'd taken time out and started doing some like online courses and a lot of research. Did some research around like the EYFS, which is obviously the early years foundation stage, which nurseries follow. So when it comes to having a conversation with her, although the experience wasn't there, she had naturally a lot of, she could explain why she wanted to do it, what she'd been doing, what she'd been researching, and what she'd learnt. So although the experience wasn't there, you could see the passion for childcare was there.
Okay, fantastic. Does anyone else have any add-ons in terms of memorable CVs?
No, I think it's pretty much the same. So it's the amount of detail that they put into the CV as well, and whether it's relevant to the childcare sector, which makes it stand out.
Okay, fantastic. Chelsea, if my CV was to get accepted, how long would it take for me to get a telephone screening or an interview?
We look to try and get the telephone interviews booked in within kind of the week. We send out some interview dates and times which are suitable for the candidate, and we then get that booked in. If they are successful at the telephone interview stage, we try to get a nursery interview booked in kind of within the next 2 weeks, just so it's kind of quite soon after. But obviously it is dependent on the nursery, on the candidate, of their availability.
Of course, yeah. And moving on to interview sort of stuff. Kelly, how can I prepare for my interview?
So when it comes to an interview, the best way to prepare is to research into the nursery, make sure you fully understand what an apprenticeship entails, such as how much you'll get paid, how it's delivered, and things like that in terms of the apprenticeship side of it, about the functional skills that you need as well to complete and how many hours you'll be working in the nursery. It's always good as well to research, which we give them hints and tips for, research into the EYFS, research into the nursery, touch on safeguarding as well. And then also to plan your route to the nursery. So make sure that you've looked at the transport links, whether you're going to be able to get there on time and how you're going to manage your time effectively to make sure you're arriving on time as well. Looking at what you're going to wear for that interview and how you're going to conduct yourself as well.
Fantastic. So, Nicola, earlier we spoke a little bit about an initial telephone screening. What sort of questions would be involved in a telephone screening that's been done by yourselves?
So we're looking at their previous education. So for any of their previous qualifications, do they link back into childcare at all, or when was the last sort of time they did any sort of form of education? We're looking to see what they consider their personal qualities to be, just to see if they are sort of transferable against within childcare. We get to find out a little bit about why they want to get into childcare. Making sure that they're aware of, childcare. Although babysitting is a brilliant experience, babysitting a child and working in a nursery are two completely different things. So making sure that they are aware of what it entails of working in a nursery, making sure they have got a little bit of basic understanding of nursery life. And then just little things like seeing how they're going to manage their time, because our apprenticeships are full-time apprenticeships, and so that will involve working full-time but doing a qualification. So making sure that they've thought about that, making sure that they can plan their time effectively, that they can work full-time and complete a qualification, and that they are aware of what that will happen and entail.
Yeah, definitely. Chelsea, this would be my first job interview. Do you have any tips for getting rid of any pre-interview nerves?
So with a telephone interview, we do reassure the candidate that it's kind of quite informal. It's just more, rather than an interview, it's getting to know them as an individual. So just to see kind of what they've done at school, if they're still at school, kind of what their career goal is. So if they are unsure on a question, we do let them know that they don't have to answer it. And we don't expect them to know every question that we do ask them, because we do understand it could be their first interview. So and with regards to a nursery interview, we do send interview hints and tips, just to reassure them that kind of if there's anything they're unsure of, they can ask us or have a look at that document as well.
Fantastic. So I'll move on to this question now. So I've done the interview and I've been told that I have the job. Are there any resources to help me before I start? We'll go with Kelly.
Yes, so when you've been successfully told that you've got the vacancy, we put you into a Facebook group, which is specifically just for apprentices that are starting within the nurseries. And then that gives you an opportunity to ask questions or to look at previous posts as well, where other people may have had the same queries or the same concerns, and then you can get the answers through there. And then it gives you that chance to chat to other apprentices as well, who are due to start their apprenticeship as well, which would help you along the way and just put your mind at ease and reassure you that little bit. And we also have the user guides for apprentices as well. So if you've been successful, we'd send you an apprenticeship user guide, and that gives you more insight into the apprenticeship as well.
Fantastic. So, Nicola, what can I do if I have any problems prior to starting? So things like needing to change my start date or anything like that.
I think when it comes to needing to change your start date, because you are an employee of the nursery, it's really important that you stay in contact with your nursery manager. You will be given their contact details. You know, if anything does change, it's really, really important that, you know, you let us know as a training provider, so we can obviously help and support you, but you can also let your employer know. That way you're showing that your employer that you are dedicated, you are going to be reliable, and that the communication is there and open. Because sometimes if you tell us and not your employer, the employer could then think, are they going to be committed to this? Do they really want it? So I think just keeping lines of communication open with your employer is really important.
Okay. And Chelsea, when I start my job, would I start my apprenticeship straight away, or do I get time to settle in at work?
So we do aim to get you started on your apprenticeship kind of either the same day that you start in the setting or the same week, just so that you are enrolled straight away onto the qualification, and you can start working on that. But yeah, if you are to start in the nursery, and you do get a start date, that would be agreed between the candidate and the nursery manager, which work for both of them really.
Okay. And Kelly, how will the apprenticeship work, and what's expected of me during the apprenticeship?
So once you've been enrolled onto your apprenticeship, you'd have monthly contact with your development coach. So your development coach is pointed to yourself, and they will support you throughout the whole of your qualification. And on your monthly visits, you'll discuss the childcare qualification, and you'll be set different tasks to complete for the following month. So the expectations are you'll complete professional discussions, which is where you go away and research on different topics, whether that's safeguarding, health and safety, the EYFS, and prepare some notes ready for a discussion with your development coach. Or it could be a case that you do some written work as well, which you could submit to your online portfolio. Or it could be to prepare for some observations. So when we say prepare for observations, you could be given a task where you have to plan an activity for children aged 0 to 1 years of age, which is a sensory activity. And then your development coach would come and observe you carrying out that activity and how it links into qualification. So it'll touch on the developmental milestones, it'll touch on the health and safety welfare, it'll touch on how you communicate and how you interact with the children as well, and how you can adapt that activity to children's needs as well.
Fantastic. And Nicola, what happens when I finish my apprenticeship? Will I have a job at the end of it?
So it does depend. Where possible, we do obviously like to keep all of our apprentices on and offer them an employment contract at the end of their apprenticeship. There are a number of factors, so it could be that the nursery just doesn't have a position available. If that is the case, we will look at local nurseries to see if they have any positions. So although a job at the end of your apprenticeship isn't guaranteed, where possible, we do always like to keep our apprentices on afterwards.
Okay, and last but not least, Chelsea, can I go on to do other qualifications after I've finished my apprenticeship? And what will my career look like once I finish?
Yeah, so we do offer other qualifications. So after they've done the level 2 early years practitioner, we offer the level 3 early years educator one, which they can do after if there is the opportunity in the setting. And we do also offer the level 3 management for kind of room managers and team leaders. So there is that progression within the setting, if they are wanting that. What was the other bit, sorry?
And it was just, what does my career look like when I've finished my apprenticeship?
Yeah, so like as Nicola said, we do aim to give all our apprentices jobs afterwards, but it's not guaranteed. So after they've done the level 2, we do look to put them on to do their level 3, and once they've completed their level 3, they could then be they will then be an early years educator qualified. So yeah, they can be qualified within the nursery, and there is the chance to progress to kind of be a room manager, and eventually they could be kind of a manager within the nursery. So.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you all for having a chat with me today. And yeah, thank you so much.